Calkins, and in an effort to provide this critical information in any way you choose to consume it, we're pleased to offer this discussion in video and podcast formats. My guests today are Dr. Brian Krug and Dr. Jamie Gibson, two of the technical leads at Syngenta Flowers, and both are past guests who I really enjoy catching up with about crop culture and production best practices. Brian and Jamie are here today to talk about begonias. Of course, there are countless types on the market for you to choose from. Seed raised and vegetative are the ones that we'll focus on this time around. And Brian's going to talk about Syngenta's wide range of vegetative options, including the new iCandy, which I would say was one of the top hits of California spring trials this year, something that the whole industry is talking about. And in that whole range of vegetative options that fit just about any application. And Jamie's going to tackle the seed varieties, but I bet the two of them will tag team some of both and have some discussion within this presentation. We have seen a boom of vegetative and seed begonias over the past decade or more, and I think it's really good to go through them, the whole Syngenta assortment with Jamie and Brian, learn some tips and tricks for producing them at the highest quality, and also positioning them for different uses in gardens, baskets, and containers. I think that covers a little bit, but Brian and Jamie, welcome.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, awesome to be here.
Why don't we start? Maybe you guys can share some of the reasons that you and the team at Syngenta are so excited about begonias heading into 2026. And I'd like to hear you guys shout out a few of your favorites in the Syngenta lineup. It's fun when folks have such deep knowledge of product assortments to hear what they like best. And then you can go ahead and jump into your presentation since there's a lot to cover. Begonias could fill hours. We do not have hours. So yeah, what are some of your favorites? Why the excitement? And then take it away.
Well, I'll take the easy one, Bill. You already alluded to it. The new introduction from Syngenta Flowers this year of iCandy. Just has such big, beautiful flowers. It's really friendly for the grower, and then the performance in the landscape or in for the homeowner is really great. I've had it in my on my patio pots in front of my door for the last 2 years, and it just looks so beautiful and catches a lot of eyes.
Awesome. Jamie, what about you?
Well, everybody thinks I'm this vegetative guru in flowers, and really, just for the record, I am a seed guy. I love the seed series in our portfolio, and some of the series that we've launched, oftentimes it's always the new shiny object in genetics, right? What's new? What's new? And oftentimes we release something that's amazing, great garden performance, easy to grow, got the culture down, know all the insights. And then we move on to the next thing. And with a name like iCandy, how can you not,
Right.
get attracted to the nice shiny object? But yeah, from a seed standpoint, think about some of these recent launches of Limitless Begonia, the new tuberous begonia. I just think back to Top Hat when that was released. First to flower, flowers on top, nice tidy basket. And then we went through a series of learnings about how to germinate it better. We went through some struggles with some pelleting and we finally got over that hump and we improved the pellet compound. And now we've got really solid germs. So, that was a little bit of pain. But now to see the reward that's still being used often in baskets and landscapes. So yeah, I just love the seed, talking seed.
Awesome. You are a seed guy. You even got into pelleting. I love it.
Well, I'm going to get started. Jamie and I will tag team this some throughout the next 45 minutes or so. As we get going, you're going to notice that we're going to only hit the highlights. There's just so much information. Like you have these slides in the podcast here, but also we have everything that you need to know about our begonia varieties in our culture guides. So that's available online to go and download, print off, have that available. Also, there's a lot of other digital tools available. Our Grower Success Guide, if you don't have a print version of it, it's available online. There's technical documents. A couple of them we'll talk about today, but you can get all of those technical documents, more webinars and videos, and everything you need for not just begonias, but everything that Syngenta has to offer in our portfolio on our newly launched website, revamped website, syngentaflowers.com.
I'll put links to all that in the show notes for the viewers and listeners, so that's one click away. But again, you guys make some of the best cultural and technical information, and we all appreciate it.
Thanks, Bill. So there's 4 varieties of vegetative begonias that we're going to cover today: iCandy, Adora, Birthday Bash, and Florencio. This shows a little bit about each one. I'm going to cover most of that as we introduce each variety as we go. So our first one here, or before I get into those, I want to talk a little bit about just some generalities of begonia production. First and foremost is photoperiod. And we talk a lot about photoperiod, especially in the vegetative begonias, to make sure that we don't form tubers and we do get flowers. So we did a technical trial a few years ago to look at photoperiod in both propagation and finished production. So if you look at this photo here on the right, you'll see that we have long day photoperiod in propagation on the top, short day propagation on the bottom, and then up and down, we finished the plants at 9.5 hours, 10.5 hours, 11.5 hours, and 13.5 hours. And what you see, to really boil this down, is when you have those long days, 13.5 hours, we don't have tuber production and we have flower production. When you propagate in short days, or even when you propagate in long days but finish in short days, you get those tuber formation. So that you're going to hear this throughout the podcast today. And then the other thing to point out here is on the left-hand side there, that graph. It's in our grower success guide. It's kind of a cheat sheet to give you a feeling of when you might transition to and from short days into long days. We've got our months of the year on the bottom there, and then hours of day length on the y-axis there. And the different curves are different latitudes. And we've kind of called out some major cities in those latitudes so that you can kind of decide what's close to you. And it will show you kind of when you're going to transition from short days to long days, so that you're not always in just trying to guess there.
Ryan, I did want to mention one thing about the tech sheet. We were talking about the website. There is a one-stop shop tech sheet on this that covers the propagation protocols and how it delivers a better finished plant. A lot of our root and cells will now take this tech sheet, print it off, and put it in their box of cuttings, liners for their customers, because they want to just continue to press upon them to keep lighting during natural short days. Because oftentimes the grower gets them, a lot of small growers, that just aren't aware that you need to continue lighting, and sometimes they'll be sluggish, they won't flower, they'll go to tuber. And so having this kind of reminder in the box has always been a really nice tool.
Yeah, thanks, Jamie. Another thing that always comes up when we're talking about begonia production is blind cuttings. Nobody likes to see or have blind cuttings. So we work really hard with our stock down in the farm in Guatemala to scout for and rogue anything that isn't branching well and is giving us a stocky plant. We'll rogue that plant out of the stock block. We manage the environmental conditions to maximize the conditions that will promote good growth. And then we're using PGR applications to promote branching, promote breaks, to eliminate any of that stockiness. Then as it gets into propagation, it's the growers hands to continue to doing the critical lighting, using the proper cell size. If we've found that if you have the plants in too small of a tray, they crowd each other out and leaves overlap the meristem, and that can lead to blind cuttings. Making sure that they get a pinch in or some PGR applications in there to manage the leaf size and help that chassis of the plant. And then, just like Jamie was saying, moving on to finishing, making sure that we get timely transplanting. These species of begonias, they really need to be some of the first ones that you transplant after you receive your liners. Waiting is going to put them under stress. If they sit for an extra week or two in the liner, making sure that you have good light quality and spacing, and again, that environmental conditions, optimizing that so that you get good branching and you can avoid blind cuttings as much as possible.
So transplant priority number 1?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. One thing that we found this year with iCandy is, when you get samples from programs, to try it out, kick the tires, oftentimes these samples kind of are set to the side and maybe held a little long. Maybe they don't have the space just yet to do the trial or put it into program. And so just that added time on the bench really can cause complexity and really impact the kind of look of the plan and establishment. And sometimes it will lead to some stalky growth.
Yep. All right, let's get into our series. The first one being the new one, iCandy. iCandy has these large double flowers against a dark chocolate foliage. It works well in quarts, and then in the larger pots, they're having lots of big impact in hanging baskets from cast through the summer trials. And it's really going to like pop out and catch the consumer's eyes in the garden center. So we have 5 colors: coral pink, ferno, lemon yellow, sunset, and vanilla cream. So to show you some of the trials through the summer, these top ones are from Plant Peddler and the bottom ones are from Lucas. And you can just see like how well they fill out the basket and just put on a good show. Collage here of different pictures from Cast and also Cultivate. We are really proud and excited that iCandy received 2 Medal of Excellence awards at Cultivate, and we're really excited about that as the excitement carried from Cast all the way through Cultivate and into the summer trials.
Yeah, definitely, Brian. Like hats off to our farm team, how they really adopted the protocols well, groomed the stock. Our sales team got the message out. Our technical trialing, we kind of built the culture well in advance. We even continued to trial this past spring on some kind of final touches of the protocols. The other big mention with iCandy is it is a shade begonia, part sun begonia. So full direct sun is not the best environmental conditions for garden performance for iCandy. It is really grown best morning sun, less intensity, of course, irrigation, critical for begonia performance.
We got plenty of plants for full sun. It's nice to have something this beautiful for the shade. And talking about spring trials, we always joke and, folks ask, what were some of the highlights of trials? And Chris Beatty's always says, well, it's what you hear about before you get to the facility. And I will say iCandy was one of the ones we heard about all the way up and down the coast. So good work to the whole team.
Okay, so moving into propagation, making sure that you're going to hear this over and over with some of our series is propagate under long days, 14 hours or longer. That's going to really be critical. Begonias and iCandy are no different. That they really attract mites, the spider mites, the broad mites, and the broad mites are really difficult to see. So by the time you see problems, the populations are high. So be sure that you're proactive with your miticides before you see problems with your mites. Using Florel at about 200 parts per million is going about 3 weeks after sticking. You want to make sure that you have roots established before you do the Florel, but this is going to help manage your leaf size so that you don't have so much overlapping and having covering up and shading the meristem, and it will help just drive that chassis to be a little bit more ready to take on the breaks and the branching. And then the final tip here is making sure when you stick your cuttings, make sure that you stick the leaf tips out in opposite directions from parallel sides of the liner tray. You want begonia cuttings generally have one large leaf, and making sure that leaf is pointing out so that it's not covering the neighbor within the liner tray, or the neighbor next to it in the strip next to it. All is going to help in that propagation. When we look at finished production, we already talked about transplanting the liners on time. That is really critical here with iCandy. PGRs aren't necessarily going to be needed, but when you do need them, it's good to kind of watch stuff early a little bit and layer on those PGRs using your B9, your Ultracell, or your A-Rest have all been shown to work well with this series.
Yeah, Brian, we recognize some growers just aren't willing to pinch hybrid begonias. And so, we've talked about all those other strategies and techniques in order to get really well-branched begonias in the basket. But one other big mention is this use of PGRs to kind of apply these sprays well before hanging to kind of mitigate some of that internodal stretch that may occur, which may lead to some stalky kind of expressions. So using these layered foliar sprays really does settle that chassis down for nice, robust looks of the baskets.
All right, and the final thing to talk about iCandy is just programming. This comes from our culture guides. So probably the most popular form that we see is going to be the 10-inch basket. So 3 to 4 plants per pot, an 8 to 10 week finishing time from transplant from a 72 cell tray is kind of what you can imagine or what you can plan for with finishing a 10-inch basket. And if you've tried to order iCandy, you'll probably have found that availability is low, especially in the first 5 or 6 weeks of the year. But Jamie, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's good availability for all of the colors kind of week 6 on is so, and that is still enough time to certainly get a quart out or to put an extra cutting in a hanging basket to finish out by Mother's Day. So if you're running into problems with getting availability, there are some options that can get you an iCandy crop in early to mid-May.
We have a good new narrated video for Mother's Day programming on YouTube that you can check out and see how the programming goes, whether using 3 liners or 4 liners in a 10-inch basket.
All right, Adora is the next variety that we're going to talk about. It has 4 colors: Moon Dance, Satin Rose, Velvet Red, and Emerald Salmon. This again is a chocolate dark foliage that has these nice bright double flowers on. It's going to work good for sun and shade too. And this is a good premium basket. It's going to have a nice, well-branched, mounded habit. The Emerald Salmon, I'll talk a little bit about later, but it has just a lighter green color. It doesn't have that chocolate green. It's a little bit more vigorous than the other 3. So some PGR management will be a little bit different with Emerald Salmon. Good trial performance. And here's photos from East Coast to West Coast showing just those nice flowers up above the foliage, showing off against that dark foliage in these larger containers, these 10 and 12-inch pots and baskets. And here's the Emerald Salmon. You can see it fills those pots out a little bit more aggressively, and you really see how green that foliage is compared to the other in the series. And like I said, it's going to be a little bit more aggressive. So watching it a little bit more on the PGRs as it's going through propagation and production.
And it can tolerate a little more sun. So you'll see in landscape garden performance trials, it's in full sun. Certainly irrigation is very critical. But yeah, that's one of the things about Adora. It's a full sun begonia.
And so light intensity is really key to follow up on what Jamie was saying, all the way starting in propagation. 200 to 250 micromoles per meter squared per second in the first 2 weeks of propagation. And then once you get roots, you can see there's roots there in that bottom picture of that liner. Increasing that up to 600 micromoles is going to really help drive that plant to bulk up and have good performance all the way through finish. As we get into finish, we recommend a soft pinch. If the pinch didn't happen in propagation, Jamie mentioned earlier that a lot of propagators don't like to pinch the liners before they ship them out. Some are, but if it hasn't gotten that pinch, make sure that you do a pinch 7 to 10 days after transplanting to just help create some more branching and develop that chassis to support that plant all the way through the season. And here's a good example of like how well it performs with higher light. So this is a trial that Jamie did at his farm. The top 3 plants are grown in 14-inch baskets with 6 plants per pot. The bottom 3 are 10-inch baskets with 5 plants per pot and a different DLI, daily light integral. So 15 to 20 moles per day on the top. And you can see how much fuller those are in that larger basket and how many more flowers there are. So that light is really going to drive that growth and drive that earlier flowering compared to a lower DLI. So the take home message there is, unlike some of our other begonias that we might be comfortable hanging on the bottom layer of the greenhouse in the basket lines, this one you want to have in that upper layer where they're not going to get overly shaded by plants above them. So hanging basket, again, is a tried and true form for this. 10 to 14 weeks with 4 to 5 plants per pot for this hanging basket. Okay, moving right along to Birthday Bash. Birthday Bash has these really cute petite flowers that are fully double against this more waxy, glossy, dark leaf. We have 4 colors: the chocolate cherry, the cotton candy, the cream, and the raspberry sorbet. They're just like a really nice, unique plant. I really like the flower form on these. Good performance out in the trials, all 4 of them here at Lucas. Nice, big, full plants on these planters. Propagation, you see this picture here is the Birthday Bash are on the top of this picture. The lower ones are Adora, and they're very similar profile, but you can see that difference in the leaf of the shininess of the leaf and a more rounded margin. Generally, for propagation, there's not anything real specific for the temperatures and requirements, but we do want to stress that to do a B9 spray at about 25 parts per million, 2,500 parts per million, 10 to 14 days after sticking, and then a pinch 3.5 to 4 weeks after stick, that's going to deliver our best well-branched finished plants. And we've worked with our root and cells on to develop this culture, and it really allows a few different things to happen. If you notice, the unpinched control there is getting kind of leggy, and that tends to snap and break off in shipping. It's not going to break as well or create branches as well. The one that's circled there, you see that there's basal branching coming, and then there's not as many flowers on that plant. So we don't have to worry about botrytis and any other problems with senescing flowers in propagation or early in finished production. And carrying this through to finished production, we see these plants filling out nicely because we've done that pinch and the behind spray. If we need to hold these a little bit, we can use some ultracell or A-rest during finishing to keep these plants toned as they're going through finished production.
Yeah, Brian, I definitely discourage anyone to use a triazole type you saw in the propagation trial, even at 2.5 parts per million. No doubt, it keeps that liner very nice and tidy and stacked, but it really doesn't grow beyond that. So it will restrict growth. So using these softer chemistries, more grower-friendly chemistries is our recommendation.
And then an 8 to 10 week crop time on a 10-inch basket with 3 to 4 plants per pot is going to result in a really nice finished product for your customers. All right. The last vegetative crop that I'm going to talk about today is our Florencio. And this is these boliviensis hybrid that has these 6 different colors: yellow, white, red, pink, orange, and cerise. These nice, bright single flowers that they're just going to fill out a basket, and they perform so well out in the landscape for the homeowner, hanging from their patio, hanging from a pergola in their backyard. They really stand up all summer long. So you can see this here in these plants by Myers Fruit Farm. And there's no shade structure over these, but of course they're irrigated well. So that's always a key with these begonias that can handle some more sunlight. They've got to be watered well. But I mean, this photo just speaks for itself. Like all of those flowers, just eye popping.
Yeah, and nutrition, right? We don't need to go overly heavy in fertility, but it does need moderate fertility for garden performance. So begonias will oftentimes show that they demand some nutrition with smaller leaves, some necrotic burn. So that's certainly a sign that the plant is requiring more nutrition.
And then the real take-home message for propagation, again, that day length extension, 14 hours to keep them from creating tubers, is going to give you a lot of success in propagation. And carry that all the way through finish, lighting them for the first few weeks of production to make sure that they bulk up and they don't start flowering too soon. They don't start creating tubers. And then the last 4 weeks or so of production before you're going to ship or sell these, you can discontinue the lights. The flowers will pop. You'll have all those breaks, lots of axillary buds to create those flowers for you. 10 to 14 weeks, 4 to 5 plants per pot for a 10-inch basket is what we would recommend.
All right. So yeah, exciting 4 series of vegetative begonias in Syngenta. And now let's talk seed begonias. So I'm going to go ahead and take control of the slides, Brian. Feel free to chime in if there's anything that you want to reinforce or big special notes. But yeah, in Syngenta, right, we have vegetative and seed forms of a lot of our genera, and a lot of these series have been released recently within the past, say, 5 to 7 years. We've relaunched a tuber hybrida. So now having a begonia tuber hybrida series in Limitless, we're going to talk about Top Hat, great begonia. And certainly we're going to talk also about the interspecific high vigor bionic. All right. So yeah, here we have the portfolio of seed begonia. And, in our catalog, we try to make sense of all the different habits and vigors and foliage types. And so these grids are real helpful. Now, in the catalog, you have these types of grids. In our grower success guide, it's in the catalog links on our website, downloadable, has perennials, annuals, propagation, production, kind of a one-stop shop, kind of a Cliff Notes version of everything in the program. But yeah, these charts are very helpful, especially when you're kind of evaluating which ones to go, whether it's the semperflorens types like the Badas or the Bada Bings, Bada Booms. Those are more your border type begonias, your characteristic, naturally compact semperflorens. You've got higher vigor semperflorens and Eureka and topspin. Some can be grown cooler. All different advantages called out in our cell sheets and tech sheets. But today I really want to focus on those interspecifics, the ones that are going to give really nice, robust garden performance, have tremendous benefit for the grower, a little more efficient when it comes to flower timing, and some advantages over some of the other products that are available in the marketplace. So yeah, check these grids out for help. Go to the Grower Success Guide for a little more detail, habit, vigor, timing. The first one we want to cover is the Bossa Nova series. Bossa Nova is a boliviensis type, and it has really nice, well-branched architecture. That's its biggest selling point, is that branched habit for more flowers, that pendulous habit, real high-end retail look of these Bossa Novas. And some of the varieties actually have darker foliage. So notice the Night Fever Papaya and the Night Fever Rosso have these attractive rosy, hot, scarlety flowers, but also that dark foliage. It really sets the color out in the garden. So we are totally excited about these. They continue to be adopted, right? We've got no doubt there's vegetative boliviensis types, but these Bossa Novas, they're great because you can program them because they're seed propagated. You can pick your sow time. You can work with some of the plug growers who are very good at growing a lot of these seed begonias. And you can put these in baskets for really nice high-end retail look. From a propagation standpoint, I want to call out a few things. Warm temperatures, the use of remay fabric. If you are evaluating the propagation phase of the seed begonia, warm temperatures closer to 78 degrees versus 72 degrees. That's going to give you more uniform emergence of the cotyledons. It's going to give you more uniformity and humidity and temperature when using this remay. So that's a big tip when propagating these begonias on the bench. Of course, you can use chambers. If you're a specialized plug grower, you can use the chamber to certainly help build that early phase of the plug. But that's the big one. Warm temperatures. Typically, these begonias are propagated in 288 cell trays. They take about 8 weeks to finish. Sometimes they're even bumped up to higher cell sizes, right? You grow them for maybe 7 weeks or 8 weeks, then you bump them to maybe a 105 cell or a larger cell, 72 cell, if you will, where the finished grower can receive kind of a more robust plug that reduces finish time. So plenty of ways. What did we learn today, Brian? Plenty of ways to skin a potato. How about that? That's going to be the new language. So there you go. So yeah, you can do it many different ways with this Bossa Nova plug production. Lighting critical. You will form. Unfortunately, a lot of these hybrid begonias where they have the tuber hybrid DNA, they will form those tubers and it can reduce vigor and you get shut down of vigor in the finished container. So extended day lighting and propagation is critical. And then when you get into finished production, because of this really well-branched habit, this pendulant nature of Bossa Nova, PGRs are very critical. One early on, maybe a B9 spray or an alter cell spray, kind of settling down the foliage, settling down the chassis. And then actually, as this plant gets more mature and you really want to hold that pendulant habit, but not have it too overly aggressive, right? There's always the chance of mishandling in retail or in the shipping phase. You want to kind of still keep these nice and tidy. A micro drench, you can go actually as high as 1 part per million with bonsai. You can do this at the final stages of finished production just to kind of hold it, but not impact garden performance, right? This is still lowest concentration to kind of keep the plant nice and tidy for retail, avoid breakage, stem breakage, damage, bruising, and then deliver that really strong garden performance. So PGR is critical with Bossa Nova. We like it. We feature it oftentimes in really large containers. Some of these fiber pots are really nice, multiple colors, combinations. That's the new theme these days with a lot of species. But here we've got this Bossa Nova in this gorgeous large container, upwards to 14-inch containers. Really that sweet spot with Bossa Nova because of its nice, robust, pendulant nature. Maybe going a little bit bigger than a 10-inch basket. Maybe that 12-inch basket, sweet spot for that nice retail price point that you want to deliver. Anywhere from 5 to 7 plugs, depending on the plug size. And you can grow this fairly quickly, almost taking about 10 weeks, but you need to make sure that you're growing these fairly warm, as begonias do require a little warmer temperature than most bedding plant basket
And this
crops.
is an example of Bossa Nova where like I'm becoming a convert to seed items because when you think about the price point to produce a 12-inch basket that looks like this from seed, the margin that the retail grower is going to get on that just becomes really, really attractive.
This has been a great addition too from the Florenova acquisition. So great genetics. Okay, my favorite. I was talking about Top Hat. We've had some roller coaster experiences with this plant, but this plant continues to be demanded. We're seeing really an upsurge in its demand because of its earlier flowering, its robust nature, its large flowers, right? The technical team actually did flower measurement back in the day when it was launched, and they actually found about 20% larger. And when we improved the scarlet, we actually are 25% larger in flower size than the other leading interspecific begonias like Top Hat. So one of those things, when I saw it, I was like, what is this mutant begonia? It's so cool. And people just loved it, went crazy for it. I think that was around 2018 really coming out into the marketplace. But the cool thing too about Top Hat is it's so nice and tidy and versatile, right? It can be grown in large tubs. It can be grown in 6-inch. Its sweet spot, in my opinion, is really that 10-inch basket, 3 plugs in a basket, flowers on top. Boom, great retail product. But also its versatility in smaller containers like the Jumbo 306 pack. So in roughly like an 18-cell 1020 tray where you can keep this tidy begonia in check. Great for the landscaper community because it's already showing flowers at retail market. And you put these in the ground and they just continue to surge with those big, gorgeous flowers. So versatile is the name of the game with Top Hat. Flowers on top. From a propagation standpoint, we've definitely worked to get the pellet improved. So we've got some really nice erosion of the pellet, and that's the key. And we'll show you here in a few images, but just showing you the uniform germination now with Top Hat. Really strong germ. Lighting is critical. Lighting is actually critical for most interspecific begonias these days, right? Oftentimes is put into a chamber just to help with pellet softening to make sure that naked seed is exposed. But, it's also being mindful that, having that naked seed for germination is critical, but you've got to have the lights. Without those lights, germination does not occur with these interspecifics. So taking it out of the chamber, exposing it to light starts the cotyledon emergence. Lighting in the chamber roughly around day 5 to 7 is when you start to see the emergence there. And then that's when most of these plug specialists take them out. So lighting is critical for emergence with these interspecifics. The big notes about Top Hat, amongst other types of begonias, you could say this for the same for the tuberous begonias. You could say this for the Bossa Novas even. But one of the differences with Top Hat is because it's a little more tidy than some of the other interspecifics on the marketplace. Maybe having this on the perimeter of the block, not so much putting it in the middle between some of the other more aggressive, vigorous type interspecifics is best. Having it on the perimeter because of its tidy habit, its emergence is roughly anywhere, say, between day 25, cotyledon expansion, day 25, 28, to really do the patching protocol, whereas some of the other begonias are roughly around day 21. So we're a little bit later because of its kind of compactness. And that carries over all the way into the finished container. Watch your pellet, watch your water droplet size. The droplet size is really critical. If it's too heavy or the pressure is too heavy, you're jostling, you're covering the seed. So you really want to focus on a very fine mist, and then using that remay to improve uniformity of humidity is so important. And then the final one is the light. Light quality is the key. More southern growers going directly on the bench, good quality light, great germ. Northern growers using supplemental lighting to improve DLI, and light quality also improves the germination performance of it. And this is that note about pellet erosion, melting the compound around it. On the left-hand side is what we don't want to see. It's when you're just doing enough where you're starting to erode the pellet compound, but you're not exposing the naked seed. And so a lot of the protocols with the plug producers is ensuring they're delivering enough irrigation in the seed tunnel, but they're also following up with some added misting in order to expose that naked seed so that you get good light development or good light exposure to that seed developing. Okay,
Because if you don't, that pellet just sort of reforms and gets hard and doesn't germinate, right?
Exactly. That's exactly what happens is you get a little bit of erosion and then you get a recrust. And once you have that recrust, it forms this hardened growth or hardened structure. And then that that seedling can't break out from that crusting. And then your germination percentage can sometimes go as low as 30%, if not lower. And that just kind of sets you back really far. So the key is to get that naked seed visible. From a final production standpoint, it's moderate fertility. It's, managing, a wide range of pH. But overall, because of its versatility, it's benign early. You can also use bonsai sprays, not too high, nothing more than, say, 5 parts per million. But really benign or benign ultracellus tank mixes work well. But we also learned if you're featuring these in those jumbo 306 packs, you can use the micro drenches of bonsai roughly a couple weeks out from market. Do that, and it doesn't impact garden performance. So you still get the good growth, but you get the management of the production growth. So we really recommend this large pack approach, that 306 pack approach, quite quickly, right? These are flowering early, about 1 week earlier than a lot of the other leading interspecific begonias on the marketplace. So either the large pack or that 10-inch basket where you can put just 3 plugs in the basket and you're finishing this around 7 weeks. So that's really the great thing about these interspecific begonias. And we salute you, Bill, and the entire greenhouse tech team for featuring the top hat strategy, using these tech sheets, continuing to mention some of these insights and learnings of what we've done. So the promotion and social media is greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. On demand, the greenhouse on demand. So this is wonderful. In addition to this messaging, we've also built a tech sheet that gives those specific protocol regimes for growth control. So showing the different PGR sprays that you can do, right? You can skin a potato different ways. You can spray different PGRs on top hat, and then you can also spray PGRs that not only control growth and production, but don't restrict garden vigor. So check out that tech sheet on the web.
And what I really like about that tech sheet and other tech sheets is how those photos are laid out. So you see the progression. We might recommend what we would say is ideal, but that might not be what you're looking for. So you can slide up and down that photo to determine what's that finished product that you want and see the different rates that are going to dial it in for your customers.
Okay, Limitless. So this is the tuberous begonia. Limitless showing you that constant production, the floriferous habit of this particular series. We've got all the core colors in Limitless, dark foliage, slightly larger flowers than some of the other leading tuberous begonia series in the marketplace. but it's really known for its flowers on top. So having that early flowering means the flowering is very visible, and that's so important with these tuberous begonias. Not only does it have the core colors, but it's got these gorgeous novelty colors such as sunrise, sunset, sorbet. So you got these blends of peaches and yellows. It really is nice. Tangerines. So we love this series as our new tuberous begonia series. Okay. So here's some garden performance shots. You know, we're always evaluating its performance. Does it cut the mustard in the ground? Does it produce easy? How do these novelties look? And it's really been a nice launch. Launched just a few years ago. Big giant flowers all the way through. Some growers and retailers have basically said, I'm not going to grow the vegetative begonias. I'm actually going to this, what is old is new again, right? Going back to the tuberous begonia for retail, these big giant flowers, so impressive. So we're very impressed with how Limitless has come to the marketplace. From a production standpoint, right, it forms tubers in natural short days, so lighting is critical to keep the vigor, to keep the seedling expanding out, especially if you're growing in these larger celled containers, right? Just like the Bossa Nova, where you grow it in a smaller cell, and then you go bump it up to maybe a larger plug size to finish faster. Tuberous begonias are notorious for that type of protocol, where you grow it in 288s, you bump it to a larger cell, and you might take about 10 weeks to finish out that plug. So moisture management is really critical, avoiding over misting, over watering, but also making sure that you're giving good uniform humidity at that seedling expansion level. Takes roughly about 8 weeks in a 288. If you want to bump it, you can go upwards to say an 84 cell, a 72 cell, a 105 cell is a lot of times what we're seeing in the marketplace. And then one particular note about the finished production with Limitless is the use of PGRs is good. You can use the B9s, you can use the alter cells. Alter cell is a quite effective tool. You can range from 500 to 1,000 parts per million. But notice in this image, this is where the beauty of Limitless comes in, is those flowers pop on top, not deep in the canopy. And so that could make or break a Mother's Day program, is if those flowers are tucked in too deep, like some of the other tuberous begonias in the market. This Limitless really shows you those flowers right out of the gate, earlier flowering, and whether it's in a quart, 6-inch, or a basket. So definitely a great series to check out. So we're recommending it here in the 10-inch basket, really depending on the plug size. It's going to take roughly 11 to 12 weeks to produce a nice finished basket. You could probably finish this in 10 weeks given temperature and a larger cell size, but we feel, that's kind of where a majority of the Limitless and tuberous begonias are being grown. Whether it's, a 4.5-inch to upwards to a gallon, or a 10-inch basket, 1.5-gallon basket is kind of its sweet spot. And then our final begonia, right? We've done 4 vegetative. This is our 4th seed series. This is called Bionic. It's kind of that sleeper series. And we've done some evaluation of this series, and we're keeping it simple, right? We know that reds and pinks and roses are the key. Having some bronze foliage and green foliage is good. And so it's got 4 distinct varietal colors. So a red in both the green and the bronze foliage, and then a pink in the other greener foliage. So we're excited about Bionic. Again, it's a higher vigor interspecific, so treated much like the top hat begonia in propagation. Here it is in garden performance. So we found uniformity, we found branching is really strong, really a good full sun begonia for landscapes, really robust. Propagation, again, similar. Lighting for interspecifics, critical for germ, critical for emergence. So whether you're doing this in the chamber or on the bench, light is essential. Avoiding covering the seed, and then you can use these PGRs to kind of manage the vigor, because these are going to be higher vigor. Roughly taking about 7 weeks in a 288 cell. Pretty good looking plugs to go into those larger containers. So this is not really built for the quart. This is not really built for the pint. This is that gallon, that 12-inch deck planter where you really want vigor and size. And this is where we've got it here. This is a cast crop that we had featured when it was launched. You can actually use micro drench as a bonsai if you just need to kind of hold the crop in, because it will continue to grow at those concentrations. So This is perfect for those big, large containers. Very few pest pressures with these types of begonias. Really a nice showy presence, great branching. That's the big thing about Bionics. So we did compare it against some of the other leading interspecific high vigor varieties, and we found that it was about 60% more branching when we evaluated the entire trial block. We had about 60% more branching, and you can see when we removed all the leaves in this trial, look at how the number of shoots has increased here in branching with the Bionics. So we're feeling excited that this is still a very highly demanded product for the landscaper, for the marketplace, for the gardens. And so we're recommending the quart be kind of that go-to spot, that kind of that perfect spot for it for production for the grower. Of course, other large containers as well. So with that, yeah, we've wrapped up 4 vegetative, we've wrapped up 4 seed, deeper culture. We've also got tech tips infused throughout the culture guides for some of those key notes about use of it. We've also got the tech sheets that are built within the website and videos, like the Syngenta Flowers YouTube video database, I believe, is now over 250 videos. So you can search that, and if you need just a kind of quick 30-second study up, it's there to supplement these great podcasts that you host, Bill. So we appreciate this so much.
Well, and we appreciate you guys. I mean, the resources you make are always fantastic. Like I always say, they're technical, but they're understandable. You guys put the time and effort into the trialing, whether it's in your own greenhouse, Jamie, or in all of the facilities that you guys trial in across North America and around the world. I do love the Bionics. It's one of my absolute favorite types of garden plants. So I'm excited to give that one a try. Yeah, you really can't go wrong with a plant like that. But the full range of begonias that you guys at Syngenta have now is amazing, and does cover all bases. And I'm sure I can speak for the viewers and listeners that just hearing the two of you run through the positioning, the different sizes, the different types, and you didn't even touch on the standard semperflorens types. I mean, you have such a wide range to fit all needs. And I know that folks are considering adding more into their lineup for 2026, and I would encourage them to do so because there is a begonia for every different application. I think that you guys have covered so much. Is there anything else you want to talk about, or should we wrap this one up?
I got one more thing, which begonias continue to surge in popularity amongst the gardening public. I think it's number 4 now when they've done some national surveys in terms of popularity and use, whether it's containers or ground. A lot of the hybrid begonias, of course, now being adopted. But yeah, it's becoming a nice alternative to some of our traditional bedding plants.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Brian. I appreciate your time on the vegetative side, Jamie on the seed, and I know that both of you are passionate about both, and that comes across very clearly. So again, thank you guys very much.
Thank you, Bill. We really enjoy doing this.
Appreciate it.
And on behalf of the team at Tech on Demand and the amazing team at Syngenta Flowers, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Take care out there and add some of these new products for 2026. It's about time to order them now.